Hi there, I'm Zoot Java. First off, I'd like to say I'm not making any claims whatsoever about the virus, vaccine, or anything to do with it. If you got any questions whatsoever, go to your doctor and ask your doctor or your health professional, whoever it is that deals with your matters to do with your health. And please, if you could just give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, whatever. It helps me out. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to get into a little something that just happened, and it was a political cartoonist down in Melbourne, Australia, who was fired from his job. And before I do that, I'm going to give you a little history lesson on some political cartooning. And this was in New York City back in the 1860s. Now, there was a cartoonist by the name of Thomas Nast, and he was a cartoonist for Harper's Magazine. Today, he's best remembered for his cartoons about Boss Tweed, Tammany Ring, or Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall was a New York City political organization that was started up in the late 18th century, became the Democrat Party's political machine, and controlled the party's nominations. William Tweed, or more commonly known as Boss Tweed, was a New York politician who became the leader of Tammany in the late 1860s. As the party's boss, he was able to appoint several city officials and essentially control the city government. As a result, he had access to huge amounts of public money, which he used to enrich himself, his closest friends, and his cohorts in Tammany Hall through a variety of money laundering, profit sharing operations. It's estimated that he defrauded the city out of anywhere from $30 million to $200 million back then. The amount today would be 365 million to maybe 2.4 billion that he would have defrauded the city of. Now, he had a lot of supporters, mostly the large Irish immigrant population that made up his base and were located there, and they were very ignorant. I say this as a matter of they just had no education to speak of. That's all. So, under his lead, Tammany Hall was so corrupt, and it was unbelievable. Tweed became known. He was wearing a large diamond in his shirt front, lived in a mansion on Fifth Avenue. This kind of brought about a pretty wide range of critics. One of the most vocal critics was Thomas Nast, who featured Tweed and his cronies in many of his cartoons, especially around 1870 and 71. Thomas Nast was a German immigrant who started a career illustrating newspapers and magazines, but moving up to political cartoons. He rose through the social and economic ranks and loved the American dream. He was a staunch advocate for municipal reform, and Tweed's corruption just insulted his sense of equity in the system. So he was never afraid to take on issues of right and wrong. And Nast wound up being the mortal enemy of Tweed and Tammany Hall. His influence was so great primarily because of the visual nature of his work. Most of Tweed's constituents were illiterate, so while they couldn't read the scathing articles that were written about him in the New York Times, they could understand the cartoons that Nast had illustrated there. So the legend has it, Tweed was so threatened by Nast that he gave orders to, quote, stop them damn pictures. In an attempt to stop them damn pictures, Tweed sent a representative to Nast under the guise of a group of European benefactors that wanted to offer him $100,000 at that time, which would be approximately $1.8 million today, to study art in Europe. Nast kind of thought about it. And because he was hemming and hawing about it, he was able to get the offer up to $500,000, or maybe about $8 million today. But he turned it down because he made up his mind a long time ago that he wanted to put Tweed and his ring behind bars. So, not being able to bribe Nast, Tweed and his cronies went after Harper's, the organization that he worked for, and they threatened to have the Board of Elections boycott Harper's textbooks, which was a very significant financial threat. The board at Harper's chose to support Nast, who created a series of cartoons depicting Tweed as a thief. Now, you'll notice that I'm stressing the point that the Board of Elections at Harper's chose to support Nast, the political cartoonist. Okay? Now, you can understand how Tweed could have been concerned about this, because Nast portrayed him as an extremely bloated politician, and it helped to demonstrate the political leader's corruption. The images that Nast made, it just captured the public attention and helped incite public outrage. While he couldn't force to act or vote in a certain way, and to get people to vote in any way that he wanted them to, Nast essentially influenced the public opinion of Tweed and Tammany. So all these people who couldn't read, they could look at a cartoon and they could make out what it was. And these papers were everywhere. Bars, diners, you name it. They were lying around. Everybody could pick them up, take a look at them, and see the cartoons that Nast had created about Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall. So the public responded to this, and the election in 1871 weakened the entire ring, with the public voting a lot of the Tammany candidates out of office. And the event was credited in part to Nast's cartoons. So while this had a huge impact on New York politics in general, it also pushed Nash to the forefront. So he became the man who could topple political regimes. And we got to keep that in mind. So after the 1871 election, a whole bunch of fraud and forgery and larceny charges were brought against Boss Tweed and his cohorts. A lot of them, including Tweed, were actually sent to prison. In 1875, Tweed managed to escape, and he sailed to Spain. And he wound up extradited after a Spanish officer recognized him from a Nast cartoon. Anyhow, Tweed got sent back to a New York jail, and he ended up dying there in 1878. So I told you that so that I could tell you this. There was an Australian cartoonist, and he worked at a Melbourne-based newspaper, which was called The Age, and he got fired after he compared certain mandates to getting poked to the Tiananmen Square tanks that threatened what was called Tank Man, the picture of the man standing in front of a tank who wouldn't move in Tiananmen Square. It's a famous picture. So Michael Leunig was the cartoonist referred to as a living national treasure, and he lost his job after he posted the cartoon. He included a drawing of a man staring at a large, shall we say, poker coming out of a tank, along with the widely used photo from the Tiananmen pro-democracy protests back in 1989, where the man is staring at a tank. Newspaper rejected the cartoon, but Leunig proceeded to put the cartoon on his Instagram, and that got a whole bunch of criticism for those who support the mandates. So all around this controversy, he wound up being fired from the newspaper's political section, where he had worked for more than 20 years. The editor, Gay Alcorn, she allegedly described him as brilliant, uh, confirmed that Leunig's talent would no longer be featured in the paper's editorial page. Leunig accused the age of wokeism and humorlessness. He insisted the cartoon was an accurate representation of the situation in Melbourne. He said that the Tiananmen Square image is often used in cartoons around the world as a Charlie Chaplin-like metaphor for overwhelming force meeting the innocent, powerless individual. In his view, it is a fair enough issue to raise in the most locked down city in the world, Leunig said. And Melbourne has had the longest cumulative lockdown, I believe, anywhere, of more than 260 days so far. So, what's my take on this? Well, my take on this is, the reason I showed you the history of it is the government know that there are things that they can't control, and they're trying to. They found out by what happened to Boss Tweed just through political cartoons and the ability for the average person to just see what was going on through them, that everyone saw the corruption that was going on. Why do you think your governments are terrified of what's going on through all of these platforms such as YouTube and other alt tech? Why do you think they're terrified? Because they are the new cartoon. The new cartoon. Everyone can just get up, just like myself, speak my mind. You can listen. You can make up your mind one way or another. What do you think? And you can look into it further. That's the whole idea. Listen to me. Look at some other people. Make up your mind. Do a little research. Anyways, just throwing that out there because, it's not a good time to be living in with all the ways that your governments are wanting to censor every single little thing that we've got going. It's really bad. But, so for now, I'm just going to give you my really bad joke, and because I promised. Anyhow, it goes like this. And remember, this is really bad. I want everybody to learn sign language, and the reason for this is because sign language, okay, is very handy. Okay, sorry about that. Anyhow, like I said, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share my content. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to leave some places down there that I am also on. Please follow me there. I am going to have to start putting most of my content up on other platforms because YouTube has already come after me, tried to cancel me, and they may as well have just said, we're out to get you. So, thank you very much, and until later, have a Java, unzit.